Yeah, so let's kick it off. So I think somebody brought up a question earlier today about the balance between monetization and user experience, right? And how important that is. So really, on the brand side, on advertising side, brands kind of gotten addicted to this performance, click-through rate type advertising. But really, what they're looking for are audiences, right? They want engagement. They want people to view their ad and also, enjoy what they're doing on their site. So on the brand side, we know what they want. What are you guys seeing on the publisher side?
It's the same. I mean, I would say we're trying to do broadly what we do with any other ad unit, which would be exposing whatever kind of data we have, making sure that we're making an impression, whether it's video or anything, is making it as valuable as possible. And yes, we have to weigh things, but I mean, from a kind of tech level, that's what we're always looking to do.
Okay, Chaz?
Yeah, I think it's the same dilemma that's been around in mobile for a long time, which is user experience versus dollars, right? And I mean, I'm from the product management world, so user experience is always number one to me. But I also know that video, there's a lot of demand from advertisers for video, and we're being pitched video every single day from networks. And I have to just say, look, there's only a certain amount I can actually run before I start to lose engagement, I start to lose retention. I get a call from my product manager saying, hey, hang on a second, you're running too many videos. So it's a really difficult balancing act. I mean, one thing I will say in the games world is, you have performance-based UA buys, performance-based networks, and you have brand advertisers. Brand is always a lot easier for us because essentially you're not playing that performance game where you're essentially trying to get each network to the top of your waterfall. Yep. So you can actually give brand videos more impressions per day.
So in the case of USA Today or Gannett, you guys have a really good site, right? So tell us a little bit about how you guys approach brands with that.
Well, what we tell brands maybe between us friends in here is a little different than sometimes. Let me just, so I'm consistent here. I know you're not supposed to use a phone when you're on stage with these things on, but I'll be a risk taker because I want to be okay, this is from a user. So remember when Christian was up earlier this morning, he said he reads user feedback all the time. I do the same thing. This is an actual real one. And I'm starting to quote. You can take the video commercials and shove them and the videos clear up your CEO's ass. You fucks don't have enough ads in the fucking print edition that subsequently quit purchasing due to the cost and the ads volume. Your narrator comment is, no, we do not make enough money from those ads. And then alienate the customer is an awesome business model. Add it up, USA Today with an AD. So he's also a comedian.
And that first one was written by a member of your team, right?
The problem is, so that's funny, it might be hanging up in multiple places at the office, but it's like a real thing. Like there's probably 50 other people he took the time to find out how to give us feedback and write that piece. So this has got to be a kind of a common, there's got to be an undercurrent there. So that's something that I need to keep an eye on.
Yeah, so I think that's a really good point. So on the user experience side, I think the learnings, because it is a data-driven world, right? And I think the learnings that we got from, say, banner advertising, we're applying to video advertising, right? And that may or may not be the wise thing to do. So creating an engaging user experience, not just shoving an ad in their face and getting a click-through, right?
I think with video in particular, at least what we're seeing now, is I think it's going to be more of a question of when you show video. When you show ads before video, or in some cases, do you not show it at all? So I think there's a whole lot that we need to learn and optimize against.
Yeah. I mean, we were talking outside a bit before about how, given that advertisers want video, right? Given that publishers can't show a ton of video, how do you put the user in that loop? How do you get user feedback from the advertising? So you can actually engage a user, you can actually get data about what advertisements the user likes, and you can pass that to advertisers. And I think there's just ROI for everyone in that. And I would love to see a company that comes up with a way of getting feedback from users, programmatically.
Yeah, right. Not just surveys, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So one-on-one interactions with a user to get their feedback on an ad. Yeah. So talk a little bit more about that. That's a big opportunity, right? What's a smaller opportunity that we can do today or tomorrow that might have an impact, right?
That's a good question. I mean, at the moment, it's at Scopely we're trying to work out I call it the next generation of ad trafficking. So we've come away from the kind of one-size-fits-all where you just throw a bunch of ads at people and hope that people engage with the advertising. We're crawling Facebook for user data, etc. We're passing that to networks. There's still a bit of an obscurity between how much that data actually plays into CPMs. So on our side, to be honest, it's still quite difficult to marry passing all that data. So when I tell my engineers, look, this SDK wants this, and this, they say, okay, well, what's the value proposition? What am I going to see in return for doing that work? I think definitely more visibility from networks would be great to understand if you're asking for more data, what's that going to mean?
I think some of the things we're looking at now is, well, for users to have the ability to watch a video ad, for example, as opposed to paying for the paywall that day or that week. So a lot of our local markets, if you're not familiar, and a lot of news organizations have paywalls now where you have to pay a certain subscription fee. So we're thinking of, are there ways that we can offset that revenue with advertising? And then another piece that is, this is maybe La La Land, but it's certainly, we have this concept of sentiment where if you have a good news story, that would be perhaps a better place for an advertisement versus a horrible news story. So right now we basically only have a kill switch. So if there's a really bad news story, like a Malaysian aircraft gets blown out of the sky, it's across the board
Fly
off.
Virgin.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Like you don't want an American Airlines ad flying, as a pre-roll before that story. So we have the ability to shut that off. That's like we need that's baseline. Yeah. But now understanding, let's just say if there's a story about financial turmoil of somewhere. That might be a good spot actually for Charles Schwab or somebody to have a pre-roll in front of that. So there's kind of two sides to the coin on that, and I think the latter example is if we can get to that point, that'll be really really interesting.
What's the that's a great point, and I immediately thought of seeing an ad that's 30 seconds in front of 15 seconds of content.
Guilty.
Yeah,
we do it all the time.
And it's painful, right? And so what do you do about that? How do you do things?
Even ad ops can't really do much about that. These are things that happen. If we had a lot of metadata from a piece of video, we knew that it's a 15-second spot or a 15-second piece of content, we would probably do all we could do to not put any pre-roll in front of that.
Yeah.
So can that be done? Sure. I think that's just. But for now, it does happen.
Yep.
I mean, you can probably put a budget together on the client side to look at the length of video that you're stitching to the ad, but it's an ad hoc solution.
Correct. Yep. And then it's like cart before the horse.
Yeah.
It's like calling them. Yeah. So it would take some dev, no question.
So then we bring up a good point of, do you guys work with advertisers to create an experience that is beneficial for both of you?
Not on the video. I mean, we do a little bit, and I'm saying that primarily from a desktop point of view.
Yep.
So we do build some high-impact ads for advertisers, and then we try to make sure that they have an experience that cascades down depending on the screen size. But we don't really do anything specific for video.
Yep.
On mobile anyway.
Yeah.
So we're a little bit more limited in the game space because we literally have a game, and the game has its core loop and what have you, and so you've only got X amount of screens, so we're not updating content, like a destination app would. Certainly at Warner Brothers, we had those situations where with TMZ we could sort of put adverts that were more contextually relevant to the actual articles themselves. We did have situations where we would work with advertisers to do that.
Yep.
On the game side, it's a bit more difficult because again, we've got a lot more. We've got performance-based networks, and we're not going to use a native experience to say, "Hey, we're Scopely, we're advertising a Supercell ad." Yep. That's not going to fly.
Okay. So the next big opportunity, right? So let's talk about the future of video and where it's going. Have you seen any trends? Is there anything happening out there in terms of on the publisher side, what best practices there are, what's emerging?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of best practices, it still feels like people are selling me as much video as they possibly can without, and again, this could be because it's a bit obscure as to how the data I'm passing them is helping the campaigns, but it feels like without mapping those campaigns to specific users. Mm-hmm. So I still feel like there's still a limitation with how much video I can run. I feel that the worrying trend I'm seeing is that advertisers are becoming much better, especially the user acquisition type of buyers, the Supercells, the Zingers, at saying, hey, I'm going to really dive into my data and understand exactly how many people are installing my apps from these videos. So video itself is becoming a lot more difficult to kind of get if the app's not performing.
Yep.
Which traditionally brand hasn't been. Brand's been kind of from the broadcast days. It's been, let's just show people video and pay X amount of money.
Yeah.
I mean, to be honest, we're just still trying to figure out what's the best formula for frequency capping even. We may or may not have a skip button on pre-roll, so our completion rates are awesome for those that do it because they don't have any other choice. But again, I think it's the frequency capping and understanding when do we show videos, knowing that the performance metric is going to come back to bite us at some point.
Yep.
When we have to do a skip button and then all of a sudden our performance goes through the floor, well, how do we combat that by offsetting or improving the user experience so that they continue to be engaged?
Yeah. So typically 15-second ads are non-skippable, and 30-second ads, there's a skip option in there for the most part. In the industry, right? So that typically happens, unless you're incentivizing people to watch the video. So what else, like magic wand, right? So you talked some real basics, right? I mean, we're in the infant stages of this. Brands we all know are looking to transition TV dollars into mobile, right? So there's the whole question of reach and attention that they want. And they also want engagement. They want the people to convert into customers, right? So there's the data element that's non-existent today. But if you were to wave a wand, what would be an awesome experience?
Well, I would challenge those that buy and plan and create broadcast ads to not just take their broadcast ads and throw them in a completely different platform and expect them to be awesome. So yeah, do we need to provide a place for them to do that? Sure. But I think they need to also take, they need to have the onus of maybe making an ad creative that is completely different. It has their video in there, but it's not maybe launching from a pre-roll, for example. But so that's maybe half of it. And then to us, we just need to always know what our users are freaking out about and plan against it really quickly.
And so besides feedback and email, you guys also have analytics that you're
Yep.
measuring it on. And good.
So yeah, it's if we start to see trends, and we have to be able to make decisions really quickly based on that. And I know for this crowd, the whole being data-driven and data-oriented decisions is maybe even cliche, but that's something that needs to be done from a user's point of view.
Yeah, I think for me, not to sound like a broken record, I think it's about engaging, putting the user in the loop. So you have advertiser, you have publisher, and user, and understanding that that you can be proactive with ad serving if you get user feedback, and A/B testing as well. We haven't talked about A/B testing. That's a huge component to this, and we A/B test in the product management world all the time with new features. We should be A/B testing with advertising, and we should be really understanding what users want to engage with. So we're not just blasting them with videos and hoping that they're engaging with those. And that, for me, would be a game changer.
Cool. So we have about 5 or 6 minutes left. I want to open up the floor to any questions so that you guys can ask questions of these guys. Go ahead.
I have 2 questions, actually. So my first question is, your negative user feedback that you received, did you see, is that consistent, like it's just ongoing, or did you see a spike and then it went away?
That's a particularly harsh one, but usually usually the user feedback is about ads. Like I would say 7 out of 10 times. 3 out of 10, 1 out of 10 they catch a bug that we didn't know about. 2 of 10 but anyway, 7 out of 10 are always about the ads. That's just the nature of it. That's been the way it's been almost forever.
If I can just jump in, the slight caveat with using user feedback too much to kind of inform trafficking, I guess, is you'll always find angry people on the internet. That's just a rule of the internet. And the people that write reviews are often those people who are very passionate. So it doesn't always speak to a loss of retention or engagement. It's good to kind of have that as a litmus check. We actually have a very engaged community management system, and I literally have one person on my team just spot checking every single day and kind of communicating with them every single day for actual feedback online on social media. But the actual App Store reviews isn't always the best kind of litmus test.
Yeah, you can only take it so far. So when this example happens, I have to tell the publisher of USA Today, it's the vocal minority, don't worry about it. Meanwhile, it probably is an issue for a lot of people.
But I guess if an advertiser sees, you can stick your effing videos up your effing,
yeah,
that's not going to go in too well.
Yeah.
And then the second question on video is, do you always run video with sound on, or do you run it with sound off?
We do, because we don't autoplay, so we have sound on. Desktop, we do not.
It depends on the network, honestly. Some do autoplay, and we generally don't like that. But a lot of networks, especially Android, will give you a set of permissions that you can check or uncheck, and we normally check sound off, if we can.
Other questions?
You're allowed to ask about my picture if you want.
Yeah, ask about that rock star. Do you play music?
Yes, guilty.
Cool. Is that it? All right, I want to thank these guys for coming up and sharing their knowledge around the video and what they're doing on the video with mobile. It's going to continue to be a trend. It's sexy, and it also has high CPMs. So I think you'll continue to see publishers want that, and advertisers want that reach. So make sure you're staying up to date on what's going on there. Thanks, Jason. Thanks, Chaz.
Thanks.